In Onshape, you can create linear and circular patterns of components. Let's take a look at how to do that. Here I am in an assembly. I've got one component. It is the battery for my drone. To create a linear pattern, you can use this icon in the toolbar. When I click on that, it opens up the dialog box. First thing it wants to know is, what do I want to pattern? So I can select one or more instances of a component. The next thing is to define a direction. Let me click in the collector, and I can use a flat planar surface or some kind of edge. You can even use make connectors. And right now it is going in the opposite direction from where I want, and they are way too close together. Let me enter in a new value for the spacing. And here we have the number of instances. We can increase that number as well. And so here we have 5 of them, and they are located 100 millimeters apart from each other. There's this other option here for equal spacing. And equal spacing, you're going to give the distance from the first side of your first component and the opposite side of your last component, and it will space the components over there. So I'm going to start off by changing the distance to 500. Now they're pretty far spread out. Take a look at what happens when I check equal spacing. You're going to see the other instances fill up this area. So I will check that. Now we have all 5 within that 500 distance. But let's turn off equal spacing and change back to a value of 100. I also want to point out one difference versus a Part Studio. You do not have the centered option here. Let's check the box for creating the pattern in the second direction. Now I will pick another surface as a reference. Let's flip the direction and increase the distance so that they're not sitting on top of each other. That is good. And here's where you can increase the instance count for the second direction. And just like in the first direction, you have the option for equal spacing. And with the linear patterns, you can even do a third direction. I will check the box for third direction, and then let me pick a surface to use as the reference. Let me flip it up in the other direction and increase the distance a little bit. And so there we have 2 instances, and like before, I can crank up this number as well. So in this way, we're creating quite a few instances in our pattern. I can hit the check mark, and that way we have the pattern of all our different instances created. Let's say I don't want this pattern. Well, you can find it in the tree and then right click on it and then choose delete. And note that when I hover over delete, the original instance is not highlighted as an object to be removed. It leaves the original instance because it was its own object up here. Now let's take a look at doing a circular pattern. That is from this icon. And here we have for the instances, let's select our same component as before. And then we need to pick the axis of our pattern. And right now I don't have an object that I want to use visible. Let me click in the collector here. You can also use make connectors. Let me turn on the display of a make connector. Oh, let me cancel off for a second. Just make sure that I can make this one visible. Let me make the origin visible as well. There we go. All right, so now let's go to the circular pattern and select the component that I want to pattern. For the axis of the pattern, I can select my make connector. And you can see right now we're getting 2 instances equally spaced over 360 degrees. You could change this if you want. Let's say I want this to be 30 degrees, but I'll turn off the equal spacing and increase the number of instances. That way now I'm getting 6 located 30 degrees apart from one another. But if I check the box for equal spacing and then change this back to 360, now it'll be 6 spread over that angle. And let's increase this a little bit. Let's make that a value of 12. Now be aware what you choose as your make connector makes a difference. So I picked this one here, and you can see that we have our primary axis going up. Let me remove this mate connector, and I'm going to make this one visible and hide the other one. In this particular situation, you can see the blue axis is on its side this time. If I were to use this one here, you can see that it is spinning around that blue axis, and that's not what I want. So let's remove that and then hide this one, bring this one back, and pick the one that we had before. And now we have them arrayed the way that I want them to be. Then I can hit the check mark. And so there you have it. That's how you can create both your linear patterns and circular patterns in an assembly in Onshape.